I'm doing pretty good. Cool. So I guess we'll just get started and
Okay.
let Ish kind of work his way in. So
Yeah,
how's your week been?
it's been good. I started a new job today. And that went pretty well. And yeah, other than that, I guess it's just been kind of a roller coaster. With all the craziness that's going on. And today was pretty good though. How's your day been?
Yeah, my day was okay. I kind of got some work done. I'm kind of on pace for the week. I'll have plenty of work left for tomorrow, but it's still on pace, so that's good. Um, just like kind of rearranged my room, cleaned my room, did some laundry, that kind of stuff. So that
Yeah.
kind of feels good. I'm in a better space because I'm facing the window now, which feels like a lot better. You know, just like physically and psychologically, and then there's more air over here. And I was really like hot earlier, but I found a couple of fans in the closet that one of my roommates let me use, so that was good. So I kind of have that sitting in the window. So
Oh,
that's like,
that's nice. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Because it was a muggy day out today.
yeah. I think it went up to like a feel of like 90 or something.
Yeah,
So it
that
was,
definitely felt that way.
yeah. And I spent my time in line outside of the bank, trying to encourage the person behind me to like step back 6 feet. So that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, were they kind of indignant about it?
A little bit, but it was okay. They didn't like take too long. It was just like first I kind of like stepped all the way to the side and just kind of like looked at them, and then finally when the line was moving and I was like retaking my place, I kind of looked back and I was like, can you back up, please? I was kind of direct about it. I wasn't really probably in the mood to be like to sound super nice about it. I was just kind of like annoyed to be in that position. But
Yeah.
you know, and then she gave
Yeah.
me the old oh I don't know how much 6 feet is kind of
God.
thing.
Yeah, that's such a, I'm just playing dumb just to be an asshole.
Yeah, English wasn't her first language, so
Okay.
there was that too. But it's still like, I mean, you should know about this distancing thing, like no matter what language you speak.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's true. It's like not very hard to really, sort of figure it out just by looking like how much measuring how much 6 feet is.
Yeah. So that was okay though. That was like kind of
Hmm.
like the deal, and yeah, I'm just kind of like in and out of social media. I had to. Was that just yesterday? The time goes by really weird. I blocked someone yesterday who was being like super super ridiculous.
Oh wow,
Um,
over what?
this is a person who gets like righteously indignant all the time on social media, and it's like someone clearly doesn't mean something, and he just keeps like acting like they do and like fighting this non-existing fight. It's very strange. It's like I don't know if he knows what he's doing or if he's got some like issues, but I've called him out on his shit like before. Like I think I figured out the cursing thing is just like it's whatever for now. Technically, in the first 30 seconds, I think we're not supposed to, and then not in the title. And even then, it's only if we want to monetize it, which
I
obviously I don't think we have to worry about right now. Um, but anyway, so long story short, this person is like full of it all the time. So I'm like, I've got plenty of work to do, and I'm doing my work, and all of a sudden he's in my Facebook Messenger saying, "Hey, you gotta check your boy Luke," or something like that. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, doesn't Luke work for etc. And I'm like, no, he hasn't for a couple of years. Well, you need to check him, blah, blah, blah. And then, I'm like, look, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like working, like you're coming off like really aggressive, like go handle your business, like stop trying to like rope me into your. I didn't even say that, but that was kind of just like how I felt. And then he comes at me with this whole like, oh, you only call people out, when it suits you, you don't call out progressives, blah blah blah. And I'm like, now I'm getting like really annoyed. Whereas I was like trying to ignore him. I feel like he's like found the way to like really push my buttons.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I'm literally like working over here. He's like, so am I. I'm like, first of all, that's not even true. I actually have spent like plenty of time, challenging quote unquote liberals or progressives. And I'm like, second of all, how would you know unless you're like stalking me on like Facebook or something?
Exactly.
Like,
do
how
you
the hell
even
would
know
you know?
him? Do you even know him in person?
I do, unfortunately. But it's one of those things where like you try to see the good in someone, and like he can be okay sometimes, but that was like a last straw kind of thing. But
Yeah, that's understandable. Like, it's kind of baffling to me, it's kind of sad, really, people who just have nothing else in life going for them. So they get so indignant about stuff that goes on, on social media. I mean, that's a sign that someone really isn't working or doesn't have anything else to do in the day, that he would get that, offended, like, about something that someone else said. It's like, I've dealt with people like that before too, and it's always maddening.
Something that someone else said, and you're expecting someone else to police. Like, it's like totally ridiculous. And then, I mean, unless I was on social media 24/7, how in the world would I know what he's talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're like one of those people that has like all your alerts like, set up to like alert you every time someone mentions something. But I'll have no idea what he was talking about, because I think I don't know, if you block someone, depending on where the thread started, you might just not see I didn't see this conversation at all, including, the person who he was talking about, who I'm cool with. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's I hate that in general too, because I've, like a lot of times, I mean, you've, seen my threads, obviously, I have like such a wide, variety of friends, and things can get contentious, and it's always a pain in the ass, I've noticed, when, people I'm friends with expect me to like take sides with them against another one of my friends. Like, sometimes I'll get messages from like two different people complaining about someone else, and I'm just thinking to myself, dude, I'm not going to take sides between my friends. If someone bothers you that much, just block them. Just don't come to me. I don't have time to just, moderate my threads like that hyper closely.
Yeah, that's a very immature way of seeing things.
Yeah.
A very like immature way to handle things or see things. It's very weird.
Yeah.
Very like high school.
It's very kind of like Karen-ish in a way, also, like they're speaking to me like I'm the manager of the thread or something.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that's a good point. He definitely spoke to me like I was the manager of the store.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be watching all the employees.
Exactly.
Very odd. It's like, I almost feel like maybe I called him out like one too many times, and he was searching for a way to just like be rid of me. So he just kind of like, goaded me into this thing. But when I told the other person about it, who he was speaking about, he was just like saying, of course, this person was being ridiculous, accusing him of all types of things.
Yeah, definitely. What was like this person's politics like? Like, you said he claimed you didn't go after progressives. Is he like ultra left or libertarian or what?
So, okay, so yeah, that's kind of that's the other thing that I found kind of odd is I would think he's a self-proclaimed Democrat, and he's, Democrats for this, Democrats for that, Democrats of this county, whatever. And like, I almost said to him, like, wait, you're saying that I never criticize like progressives or liberals, but don't you consider yourself progressive or liberal? And don't I criticize you all the time? So I don't get it. But
Yeah.
I guess now we know that he's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we know he's not, which kind of tracks, which kind of makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a certain type of person I've noticed that just doesn't really, seem to have very coherent politics and seems to just like to be contrarian. Like there was someone else on my threads who at first I thought they were ultra left because they would criticize people constantly and beat them over the head for not being critical enough of Democrats, being like, oh, where were you under Obama? And I thought they were ultra left, but then they all of a sudden turned around and became very anti-Bernie and sounded like, a centrist Democrat, attacking Bernie from the center. And I realized after a while this was just a person who is just sort of reflexively negative and reflexively contrarian.
Yeah, there's definitely those out there.
Yeah.
I mean, this person often like criticizes DSA and says that the DSA folks are like people from Westchester with a lot of money, blah blah blah, and just like a bunch of stuff. And then, yeah, I would say he probably, I don't know. I want to remember him as maybe being a Bernie supporter, but who knows?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a little all over the place.
Definitely. And that's another thing too, because I think that's an interesting sort of class critique of DSA that I've seen, that like a lot of people in DSA do come from, middle class backgrounds or like upper middle class backgrounds, like basically the, downwardly mobile sons and daughters of the PMC. And there's, a class disconnect in DSA, but, and there's a smart version of that critique, but a lot of the people, that make it, are, themselves, are, kind of arguing in bad faith, like just using that to try to, like tear down the whole organization.
Yeah, that's interesting that you use that phrase bad faith, because that was like the person who I told that they were being, trashed by this person. Mm-hmm. That was the phrase he used, like, like this person is like operates in such bad faith. You said PNC. What does that mean?
Professional managerial class, which I think is the term that's sort of gained currency lately.
Okay.
Yeah. And my guess, I think it's like basically people who work in white collar jobs who might be like professors also. I like maybe doctors, lawyers, like I don't know technically what fields it covers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably like lower six-figure folks or something.
Yeah, I think that about sort of describes it. And also like the type of people who supported Warren or supported Mayor Pete.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you think about like all the protests and everything that's been happening, and like how the mayor's been handling everything?
I mean, I think it's beyond disgusting the way he's handled it. I think that curfews are just by their very nature totalitarian, and you're basically treating adults like children, and it's really disgusting. And like I mean, I felt, and honestly, like I felt the same way about the way they were even going about enforcing shelter in place. Like, I mean, it is one thing to just strongly encourage people to stay home in a pandemic, and it's one thing to suspend commerce. I mean, that's necessary for public health reasons, but to then go around, have cops go around and just, harass people for being out in a park is fucking, I'm sorry, is completely ridiculous. And, between that and I think, Cuomo's response to the protests, so far has just been beyond disgusting. Like between, the curfews, between, outright gaslighting people and just, sort of denying, what's before, his very eyes, that, the cops, have just been brutalizing protesters. I mean, I think it's
Wait, are you talking Cuomo or de Blasio?
I'm talking both of them. I mean, I think one of them was quoted, one of them was quoted as saying something along those lines. But I guess more Cuomo, because Cuomo is the one responsible for implementing, the curfew. And I really do think at this point that, I mean, I know he's been primaried the last 2 elections, but I really hope that, this time, if he runs for a 4th term for governor, I mean, I really hope this is the point at which someone, is able to, defeat him.
Yeah, I mean, we have to turn the tide against him because he's kind of politicked so well that he's kind of put himself in places like this.
Mm-hmm.
This strong, do-gooder, savior kind of character that was like the hero we needed in this time, even though that's not the case.
Yeah.
He's just kind of drawn that scenario very well.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of reminds me a lot of, of Giuliani, like how Giuliani, pre 9/11, he was like an unpopular mayor, and, was like, probably would have been a, historical footnote, but then because of that, he, gained some, temporary, national fame, and, was, thought he could run for president on that. I mean, of course, it sort of became a punchline after a while, but I think Cuomo has sort of, exploited this crisis in the same way that Giuliani did 9/11, because, like, similarly, he was, previously a pretty unpopular governor. I mean, that's why he, didn't run for president this last time, because, he only really won re-election because we're such a heavily Democratic state, but he really had no popular mandate. I mean, given that, Cynthia Nixon actually did fairly decently against him, in the primary last time. So yeah, it's like, it's just maddening to me that he wants to, completely whitewash that and try to sell himself, I guess, in 4 years he'll go to Iowa and sell himself to people, who aren't New Yorkers, who don't know his whole record.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, as far as the protests nationally, I've been very, very happily surprised that folks just all came together like that. It was like a huge show of solidarity. That the last time I saw this was probably Occupy, which I was very surprised that took off that way. But the difference is this one has really turned worldwide. My cousin in Canada was the first person I saw that I realized, that was filming things going on in other countries. But, then the next morning I woke up reading this article just showing pictures all over the world. So it's pretty incredible that way.
Yeah, it is inspiring that it's finally become an issue that has sort of gained international currency. People worldwide see what a bunch of basically little Gestapos, the police in America act like.
Yeah. And then as far as BDB, just defending the cops who are running people over and stuff like that, it's pretty deplorable but it makes me think about, how little power he must think that he has to, like, back the police. And it seems like it's par for the course, like I want to say most mayors do, but then there have been cases where mayors did speak out about what was happening, maybe more specifically, like the tactics used, to kill George Floyd or what have you. But um, I don't know. It seemed like de Blasio had an opportunity to condemn some of the police tactics, and then he walked it back really quickly and said, you shouldn't be interfering with the police and this and that, and just kind of put it on the protesters and kind of like washed his hands of any pointing of responsibility to the cops who were running people over.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think there's something to that. That he is maybe just a complete pushover, and is willing to just cede to the cops so easily. I mean, to the same cops who turned their back on him. I mean, I don't know what his deal is really. I mean, I think I guess the cynical way of looking at it would just be that he was always a total opportunist, and when he ran for mayor, didn't really care about the issues he ran on. And that could be true, or it could be that he genuinely maybe did care at one time, but just has zero backbone.
Well, during his press conference today, he did bring up some of his victories, and he brought up the fact that he was able to curb or stop and frisk, and that they got rid of like broken windows and stuff like that. So he brought up some good points about some big issues that they were able to kind of see big movement on, and those were a big deal.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of people were affected. A lot of people were affected by those things.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, that is definitely one area in which he actually did some good. I'll be right back. Actually, I gotta go grab my charger because my laptop is starting to
Sure.
the power's starting to run low. So I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Cool shirt.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, so that being said, it seems like he was kind of paralyzed by the way he's been treated by the cops, and like maybe he doesn't know what to do with them literally turning their backs on him. I was reading like horror stories about towns where people can't get the cops to come when they call 911 because they defunded the cops. And so like the cops, I guess they did this in Baltimore too. They stopped like, going to people's calls because they got like defunded. It's kind of like their version of a temper tantrum.
Yeah. And that makes sense. Like, the police could have been, I guess exerting pressure that if he didn't, sort of give in to their demands, they would, they would stop responding to calls, and then and then that would that would have a negative sort of backlash against him. I just wish that he would stand up to that kind of behavior. I mean, there's an extent to which if you want to actually make any kind of systemic change, you sometimes have to call people's bluff. And I feel like a politician who is truly principled would almost say, look, I may personally take a hit for this, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make because I recognize that the status quo can't continue.
Yeah, plus like what kind of message does it send that you allow them to do that you allow them to literally hold you hostage? Like
Yeah,
these are supposed to
exactly.
be the good guys, and
Yeah.
they're acting like way worse than than like a criminal mastermind group.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, they really that they're just basically, in a sense allowed to act, as sort of an unelected, unelected branch of government. I mean, De Blasio, that's what drives me nuts too. De Blasio was elected mayor with over 70% of the vote, with his one of his central issues being police reform. So clearly, he has a popular mandate. I mean, it's and that's why it's just maddening how easily coward he is.
Yeah, yeah, that mandate
Mm-hmm.
should have allowed him to do a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I almost feel like if they're not going to mess with him anyway, if they're not going to like him, they're not going to be on his side, then he might as well power through it and do what he's going to do. He's already seen like some good changes by doing that. And the other
Yeah,
thing is like that's a good reason to like really get rid of management. Like, because this stuff happens from the top down, right? Like rank and file, those guys can't make those kind of decisions and
yeah,
decide to
it's
do that.
true.
And the other thing that's come out is people are, I mean, people have been thinking about this for a while, but like I was reading about how like even the so-called police union is not a union. It's more of like a federation, or at least in some, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if this was specifically for New York City, but I was reading about like how in many cases, the quote unquote uh, union is a federation, and it's not like it shouldn't have the same, it shouldn't be protected or seen the same way as a union is, because they don't act like one. They don't act in solidarity with other folks that are in the AFL-CIO. So they really shouldn't be protected like one.
That's interesting. So they're basically they're kind of sort of a rogue union then in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who wrote that? Who wrote that article? I would be interested to read, about that, because I think that's an interesting distinction to make between a union and a federation.
Yeah, it's on my page.
Hmm.
Yeah, you should be able to easily find it.
Yeah.
But it's something that people are talking about because, the big things people are talking about are abolition, for one, and like rather than just looking at the police force as something that needs to be retrained and needs better training, it really needs like a reduction in size and a reduction in dependency. People are just like culturally speaking, people should depend on them less and like engage with them less. Um,
Yeah, definitely. Like there's really no reason to enforce half of the things they do. I mean, yeah, I think that police interactions with the public definitely need to be cut down on, and that's been connected to so many things too, like this. I mean, the Eric Garner thing, like the fact that they police like loose cigarettes. I mean, it's really just stupid that that's even a misdemeanor.
yeah, so I mean, the problem is like they're kind of like perpetuating their own jobs, right? It's like, when the phone company tries to sell you that package that's like cable, landline, and cell phone, and
Yeah,
it's like people stopped using landlines like, back in 2005 or,
yeah,
however
pretty
long
much.
ago, but
Yeah.
they've only stuck around because they wrap them up in these bundles. And it's like, how about like we just get rid of something that's no longer of use instead of trying to keep it around?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny. Like my parents still have a landline, but like almost never use it. I guess just because it was included in one of those packages.
Hmm. So it's weird. I'm trying to open this up. Oh, okay. So it's more than an article. It's I can't tell if I'm recording or not. Okay, yeah, I'm recording. So yeah, it's an interview. The guy named Steve Fletcher, who's a Minneapolis, I think, city council member, and he's the one talking about like unions versus federations and like what they're actually worth.
That's
Minneapolis Board 3.
that's really interesting. I'll have to read that because I think that's, a distinction. I mean, I really don't, wouldn't have thought that much about, and a lot of people, wouldn't have thought that much about, and that's, really, really, I think important, important to, bring into this conversation.
Yeah, because no one wants to go against unions, No
Yeah,
one wants to be like anti-union, even if it's police, because they don't want some like slippery slope or something.
right. Yeah,
No,
and that's
but the fact that there's a distinction, that's good.
yeah. I remember actually. I can't remember exactly what it was, but when I was at like a YDSA convention a few years back, and I went to like some labor panel. I remember getting into a discussion and about attempts to Republican attempts to go after public sector unions, and I just said to someone, yeah, but the one union I would be okay with them going after would be the cops, and
Yeah.
they got mad at me because like these are consistent labor activists. So I think that it's important to make the case to people on the left that certain unions really are not even unions per se, and are really just more not even just a federation but like a cartel almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I think, intellectually, it's important, even if they were technically a union, if they were only like doing harm, if they were like doing a lot of harm, you would still want to like examine like exactly what it means.
Yeah.
It'd be like an easy discussion, but you'd want to examine like the role that they're playing.
Exactly, because some unions in this country have not had a great history. Like I've heard, a lot of people talk about how the building trades union in New York has historically been very, very racist, and how they've called the cops or they've called ICE even on undocumented immigrants, and
Okay.
like yeah, and like even Caesar Chavez, who's hailed as a hero of the labor movement, reported, I think at various points reported undocumented fruit pickers to the authorities. So
Really?
yeah, so unions. I mean, yeah, that is a controversial thing I've seen. How some unions will take sort of almost conservative stance on immigration because they see
They want to protect their
yeah
workers.
their wages, and I really just I've always found that disgusting in a way, because it just to me shows a lack of solidarity. I mean, you should want working people to be united, like regardless of whatever country they were born in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I never heard that about Cesar Chavez.
Yeah. It's I think it's like sort of one of the darker points of his legacy, but it's something that that's even been a controversial issue within DSA. Not DSA so much, but just on sort of the Jacobin democratic socialist left. Are you familiar with Angela Nagel?
No.
She is sort of. I mean, she's like a leftist. She used to go on. She was interviewed on Chapo Trap House. She wrote like, a book, about the alt-right, like, from, research that she did, going online. She's like, and I like, she's like, she's from Ireland originally. And she actually, at one time I thought she said some interesting things, but she wrote this like really controversial essay at one point called The Left Case Against Open Borders. And, it involved like, she mentioned Chavez, she mentioned Marx, and basically, like she even, cherry picked quotes from Marx to try to, create this whole false history of, the left as basically being nationalist, inherently, and how like the, if you support open borders, it automatically sort of makes you a Koch brothers stooge. And that was very controversial because the essay itself came out like, a week after there had been an incident in which the Border Patrol, like basically shot at a bunch of undocumented immigrants. And, for her to come out with that essay was just tone deaf. And also she's, gone regularly on, she like went on Tucker Carlson, right, around the same time to promote it. So like, when I hear people sort of talk about horseshoe theory and like, like how the far right and the far left intersect, I think that's, a good example of it.
Yeah, it's totally true.
Yeah. Hello, are you there? I think we're going in and out.
Oh yeah, I'm there. I was just
Okay.
crunching that ice. Didn't wanna.
Okay. Yeah, no, I didn't hear the ice crunching. I wondered if we were, like breaking up. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. I've never heard those contradictions before.
Yeah. Well, that's good. You've probably hung out with better, or been exposed to better leftists than I have. I mean, I've spent so much time, sort of engaged with like all of the worst, factions on left book, and I've like gotten, involved in so many, factional, like I've been exposed to all the awfulness of like, the various, factions and infighting within DSA that, it's not fun when once and it gets very esoteric and kind of pointless after a while.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, infighting amongst the left is, I mean, on some level there has to be, because there's just like differences and people are fighting for different things, but on some level it's probably kind of gets kind of academic.
Yeah, and I mean that's why I'm okay with it. When I think something needs to be said, that's a good example of it. I mean, I just feel very I feel very strongly. I'm very strongly pro immigration, pro people having a right to live where they want to live, and so that that argument really just deeply anchors me. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, sometimes it is worth it to just to have the fight. But yeah, there are times where it does get to be, like you said, too academic, and I guess too sort of weird and obtuse in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The big divide that I've seen is like, folks who are making all the comments about looting, and it's always like one of these, like, now I agree with everything else, but stealing is like ruining the message, or I can't agree with looting, it's just something I won't get down with. And I often find a way to like kind of like drop a few pearls into those conversations.
Yeah, I think that's kind of important. Like what sorts of pearls do you drop in there?
I mean, I'll talk about like what happened in 1963 with the riots and how that led to JFK kind of expediting the immigration laws, and then coming out with his famous civil rights speech, which led to his commitment to civil rights, which eventually led to LBJ signing the Civil Rights, Act the next year. But it all like kind of precipitated in that, week or so of like violent unrest, including all types of rioting and I'm sure looting and stuff as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I think I think that's something people are really naive about.
Yeah.
That they think, they think, you know, they think that, like protests can always, be peaceful. I mean, when there is injustice, and when, like time and time again, the system has just shown, a complete unwillingness to address these issues and just allowed this, brutality, to just continue unabated. It's like, there's a point at which yeah, like I think that by, causing a disruption to daily life in a sense, is eventually is going to lead, to like, a lot of, business interests, that, if their bottom line is affected, as a result of, of basically of, looting and, rioting to some extent. And I don't even know if that's the term I would use, but I just think protests, can't always be completely nonviolent. And, yeah, if you want to, bring about justice, there have to be countervailing, forces like businesses whose bottom line is threatened that, like will be willing to take on the police union.
Yeah, definitely. I compared it to like, like kind of like holding the line, and like, on the flanks, like you have, anywhere from like, burning and looting and property destruction and disruption and stuff like that, to like as you get towards the center, it's more like, vote for things that you want, and like people who are well behaved and things like that. But it's like, it's not like a monolithic movement asking for change. It's like, it's a whole like it's a whole moment like that crosses, many different socio, economic statuses. And it's like, the reason why it's so effective is because it's a huge moment. It's not like one or two leaders saying this is what we're going to do strategically to get it done. It's like, it's civil unrest. It's not going to be pretty, and it's not going to be as strategic as people would like it to be.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's very true. Yeah, you are always going to get, a whole, wide spectrum, of people, like, with different views, like from, like just, liberals to like, the far left. And yeah, it's not always going to be, it's not always going to be pretty. And I think something else, I think, it's like something, I was saying on my, on my Facebook page, like about a week ago, something that bothers me is like the whole, narrative that like agitators are the only ones, causing disruption. I mean, I think that, I think that, basically just, when that's said, that just sort of erases this conversation that needs to be had, which, is, to point out that like, violence is not just senseless, and it's not just, opportunists. I mean, there actually is, like a point to it, and there actually is, like there's like a material, case to be made for why protests can't always be nonviolent. And I don't necessarily want to say that either to, diminish, the idea that agitators, in a sense, aren't a problem, because I think what is a problem is, far right provocateurs that will latch onto the protests because they want a race war, I mean, this is basically, the type of, fantasy that they dream about to, perpetuate the Turner Diary. So I think, there's some nuance there in that we need to acknowledge that, but people who just try to act like that's literally the only thing that's going on, I think, are just being reductionist.
Yeah, and by simplifying that, it's an easy way to like sow discord, where there's amazing unity.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
And so, like within our communities, if you can tell people, oh, it's just like some crazy white people, like, smashing everything, like that's not what your community is really about. It just makes it easier to, divide people.
It does, yeah, because it makes, it causes people to just, look at their, allies, look at the, other people in a protest, suspiciously, and just, question their sincerity. And that, yeah, it does undermine solidarity. I mean, it creates a rot, in the movement. It makes people less likely to just have each other's backs.
Yeah, and then you got the police that are like kneeling at these protests. And I got in a conversation with a friend's mom on Facebook who, she had responded to the article I printed about like not allowing cops to enter these protests, and like this other stuff is like saying, well, I feel like if people are coming together, that's good, and if the good cops want to protest what's going on, that's good. And for a moment, I agreed with her and said I'd rather see cops kneeling at protests than wailing away on protesters and like beating them and stuff. But then as I quickly read the article, I realized like the article was saying the same cops who were kneeling one day were back to like beating protesters the next day, and that it's not like these cops are going to kneel and then go back and be like, we've got to change things.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like, it's not going to lead to anything meaningful. It's just like this empty gesture that's like, meant to placate people. So there's that. And then there's, of course, the possibility that some naive activists like, befriend some of these folks, and they try to like get information on people and like try to infiltrate and like plant like evidence or just whatever nonsense they kind of do. So there's that too.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge problem. Like really, like rather than kneeling, if those cops like are actually sincere about wanting to make a change, they would go and try to reform reform the police department itself, which is is probably a tough thing to do because of the internal culture of the police, like what they will do to an officer that tries to blow the whistle. But regardless, I mean, as long as they're going to work every day and doing this job that that involves like upholding unjust laws and terrorizing people, they have to sort of accept that they're going to be seen as the enemy. And that's a really good point though too, that I didn't think about, that like they could use sort of use the guise of solidarity to get people to to let their guard down, and think they can trust them, because really they can't be trusted. And it's like, it's like, it's not even a value judgment, of them as individuals, like whether they're good or bad people. It's just sort of unfortunate that, sometimes we're at a moment in society where where battle lines, are drawn, and like someone, who is a police officer, when you're a protester, is just, inherently, going to be, the enemy. I mean, in the same way that, like, during World War II, I mean, you might have had like, a German soldier who, might, or a Japanese soldier who might have been like,
Yeah.
a perfectly, decent person. And it's like, yeah, it's unfortunate that it came to that. And, ideally there wouldn't be war and it wouldn't come to that. But it's like, once you're in the heart of it, I mean, it's unfortunate, but, that, certain people just not even, not even on a moral level, not even whether they're good or bad people. Some people just become the enemy just by nature of like the battle itself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, full disclosure, one of these conversations I had, like, I didn't want to use that analogy of the German soldiers because I just wasn't sure it was going to go over well, but that's definitely what I was thinking,
Yeah, I guess that's, I mean, I guess that comes very close. Which is another thing that's overused, to like God, the term God, Godwin's law in a sense.
And what exactly does that mean?
I mean, it was like a term coined, I think, by this professor named Richard Godwin, who basically said, that like when you bring up, when you compare your, opponents to Nazis, or when you make a Nazi analogy, you've lost, the argument. And like, there are cases in which people like lazily make Nazi analogies, but I think, that, the accusation of Godwin's law is also overused because there is, legitimate injustice that does parallel the Nazis. And in this case, it's not even, making a Nazi comparison per se, but just, sort of making an analogy which could apply to any, any battlefield, or any time there's like, a line has to be drawn in the sand, to German soldiers. So this, I mean, I guess, this might not even be the same thing, but I guess, I mean, were you like afraid that, people would just, interpret it that way and just be turned off?
Yeah, I mean, again, I was speaking to someone's mother, and she's Jewish, and just a lot of these Facebook conversations get misconstrued anyway.
Yeah.
So I just didn't want to cross any lines,
Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah.
I just wanted to keep it cool.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I guess you could just always refer to them as stormtroopers.
Yeah, that's very, very accurate. And of course, yeah, they're you're not even being, just Nazi. I mean, you could just say, no, it's a Star Wars analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took me a long time before I realized that that's where they got that from.
Wow.
Because I think the way that I figured it out was through like a Charlie Chaplin. I don't know if it was an actual Charlie Chaplin movie or if it was a movie about Charlie Chaplin, but either way, the stormtrooper reference was used there, and then I was like, oh, okay, that's what that whole thing was about. I had never realized the connection between Star Wars stormtroopers and Nazis.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine, that's one of those things, like a lot of people, probably, when they see like, Star Wars, as kids, probably see that like before they learn, World War II history. Yeah. And that's, the point of reference.
Yeah, I don't know how they skipped over that in my school. Like that phrase was we just never learned that phrase for some reason in school. So I didn't figure it out until much later.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of things get skipped over, but it's true. Yeah. I'm sorry if I don't know if I'm repeating myself or talking in circles. I guess I'm, kind of tired. It was my first day at work.
Oh yeah. No, you're good. This has been a Yeah, this has been a good discussion. I usually
Awesome.
find myself tired by the time I hop on, so I'm like glad that I'm decent today. It's
Yeah,
usually
definitely. Yeah, I hope, I mean, yeah, I mean, this is just, it was mostly like a long day of filling out forms and stuff. Yeah, in the future, I might I might, once I've gotten in the groove, I might, get a second wind, when we do one of these things later.
okay.
Yeah.
And this is that you're working for your writing or
I'm working for a law firm, handling client requests and like basically breaking down some of like what the lawyers talk about, some of the legalese into just plain English, layman's terms.
oh to the clients, letting the clients
Yeah,
know
yeah,
what's
like
happening?
yeah, sort of, yeah, just yeah, communicating between them and the lawyers, because yeah, I guess a lot of lawyers, aren't always so good at dealing with people.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, it's like, did you ever see the movie? Did you ever see the movie Office Space?
Yeah, yeah.
You remember the scene where like that guy Milton, they're like interviewing him about his job because they're like trying to downsize the company, and
Right, right, right.
yeah, he's like, I have good people skills. What the hell is wrong with you people?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That sounds like a cool gig. So
yeah,
you're just like basically like a liaison. You're basically like an interpreter for lawyers.
pretty much, yeah.
That's cool. So would you actually be like in a room with a client and a lawyer,
um,
or not so
I
much?
I mean, it's possible that it may entail that at some point. I mean, obviously, not right now, because it's all everything is remote. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
basically they just mailed me a company laptop that I would normally use in the office,
Okay.
but I'm using here, and there's talk that they're aiming to reopen in July, and like, I mean, right now I'm answering to a branch of the company somewhere in the Midwest, but like they have another branch in Albany. So I mean, I don't know if maybe when they reopen, I will be commuting into Albany, which I'm actually fairly close to right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wait, where are you now?
Woodstock. Yeah, we're right outside Woodstock, West Hurley, which is about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Albany, via bus or train, I think.
Oh, okay. How long
Yeah.
have you been out of New York?
I've been you know, permanently since the pandemic began. I mean, there was like for the past year, I was kind of transient. Like I had various short-term jobs in the city, and I would just couch surf or stay with friends, for a couple of months, and then I would be back up here for a couple of months, and like up until I was sort of on that basic routine up until the pandemic began. But like I just happened to be up here, and it's kind of funny because like before the whole because like I've done a lot of acting work, and like before the whole like acting like world, before like all film production shut down, I had been considering going into the city to work on a
Okay.
couple of sets, and I'm kind of glad I didn't now, because I was like just right in the week before they shut everything down.
Sure, sure. Oh, you froze.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Are you still with Nightberg? Hello?
No, no, I'm with working families.
Oh, that's right. No, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been with them for a while. What's that been like? Because that's probably been one of the craziest transitions. Because campaign work is like one of the most sort of like social fields, and one of the most fields that's probably been, most radically transformed by this.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, in the beginning, it was definitely. I mean, there's always been stuff that you could do via phone, like phone banking and stuff like that, and then there's like text, texting and stuff like that. But some of it was just like the shift from like, purely the shift from doing mostly doors and then some phones and texting to like all phones and then texting. So it was kind of weird at first because, you're used to just being out and about and your days going by faster by being like in the community, trying to like find people and knock on their doors and talk to them one on
Yeah.
one. Whereas this is like, it's just like more of a grind. It's just like, call after call after call after call. And in some cases, we were working on campaigns where we had to do voicemails. And it was like, it was this like, I was leaving like 140 voicemails a day, just like saying the same thing over
Yeah.
and over and over. So it just made things more like you have to do whatever you have to do to get it done.
Yeah. It just, felt like, probably, even just more just, drudgery than
Yeah.
usual.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, where some folks, felt like they had less work, everyone felt like more Zoom calls, more like drudgery, like, just like less avenues of being able to get things done.
Yeah,
Specifically
definitely.
for people who like the whole face-to-face social aspect of what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gotta be a real transition. And it's kind of funny because yeah, like when I think back, I'm so glad I did canvassing in a way because I was not at first one of those people who liked the social aspect of it. I mean, I had social anxiety working on my first campaign, but once you get in the groove of it, it can be kind of fun, after a while, and like you occasionally get a door, with someone who's just a jerk, and it's like, what's the big deal? You laugh about it, and you'll like have you'll also have good conversations, and it's like sort of nice to sort of be out connecting with the public.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Definitely. Yeah, I do miss being out and about. Um, and then I'm also kind of getting used to making my own schedule at home too. So that's kind of a thing. And sometimes it's for better or for worse. Sometimes I do like ridiculous things and stay up all night. But
Yeah.
then I'm like, and then I don't even end up making up the sleep sometimes. But then I'll take like these naps in the middle of the day. So it's just like, if you ever just really wished, like I remember there were days that I really wished I could take a nap at work, and I would see some of these rooms and some of these, shared spaces that we share at work, and I'm like, that should definitely be a nap room, you know, because I know like some of the
Yeah.
companies, the quote unquote progressive companies do stuff like that. And I'm like, man, if I could take just a half hour nap, I would be such a more productive worker right now. So it's like you can just do stuff like that, you know?
It's true. Yeah, that is definitely that is definitely like one plus that you could just like just even just close for 20 minutes because like I mean with the type of work I started on today, I mean it's just starts to feel like kind of a strain after a while to just be staring just at a screen
Yeah.
not nonstop. So yeah, even just being able to like close your eyes, and it's interesting to think about how how this could change the economy radically because like even once they develop even if they develop a vaccine relatively soon. I mean, like a lot of companies might just realize there is no point to having so many people in the office, and on one hand, it might, make the job market even more precarious, which is bad. But at the same time, it just might become the norm that more people work from home. And if you just quantify that, and you just think about all the urban areas, in the world that will have like less commuter traffic, it could be, like a positive thing for the environment.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it has so far. It's had a drastic improvement on the environment.
Yeah, that was one of the craziest statistics I saw, that like within the industrial age or something, like since the 1800s even, this was like the most radical drop in carbon emissions like in recorded history.
Yeah, I bet nature's been loving it.
Definitely.
I mean, it's just a real bounce back too. It's just like, you really hope they can, duplicate that under better circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, which kind of goes back to something I think we talked about like a couple times ago, where I was, thinking about this and thinking, it's just one of many things that makes me so bitter, we don't have like Bernie as the Democratic nominee, because I mean, just think about that. Think about what's going on now and how great it would be if that was like the 1 year, lead start to a Green New Deal in 2021. Like if he got in there and just, implemented a Green Deal, which I didn't used to think he could, because like I knew there would be, a lot of conservative Democrats, and I didn't think he would win by a sizable, enough margin to have coattails. But with the way things are right now, and, knowing that he would have been such a better candidate than Biden, I think he would have won, in a landslide. And actually, because these are, not ordinary times, could have, even, made the case to like, Democrats who normally wouldn't support it to get on board. So yeah, I guess I'm still, pretty bitter, about the way the primary turned out, for that reason.
Isn't that the plan for him to still have influence, like him, AOC, and some others to still have influence over the Green New Deal and what happens with that? And don't they have like a coalition of people that are supposed to like advise Biden on this stuff?
They do, yeah. And I mean, I really hope they're able to. I mean, my hope is that Biden, maybe is that maybe he just, is like so, like old and apathetic that he doesn't really have, that much of a core ideology, and will just sort of go where the wind blows. And if he's, and the right people have his ear, he could be brought around on it. I mean, that's my hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard Obama said something positive about Bernie recently, too. Did you hear something about that?
I didn't hear that. No, what did he say?
I mean, it was like one of those things where you're kind of like, man, you said that kind of too late.
Yeah.
Like, it was positive enough where you're kind of like, well, where's this coming from now? Like, like he kind of said something about like Bernie having good ideas, and I should find the quote. You should look it up, but it's it's one of many interesting quotes / speeches that have been going around. I heard about the Bush speech recently, which I didn't hear it myself, but from what I heard, it sounds suspiciously articulate.
Yeah.
Like the joke that I made earlier was like, why didn't he hire these speechwriters while he was in office? Like, why does he have them now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. I mean, I guess, I guess he's just done a very good job of like, they're probably speechwriters from whatever PR firm he's hired to like, rehabilitate his image to like, to liberals and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going somewhere with that, or if he just wants to sail off into the sunset looking better, looking better through history then he would have.
Probably. Although I think, I think maybe, like as more history goes by, like maybe this is just one very bizarre period in history in which he's, rehabilitated. But maybe as we get further, as we get further along, people will again, reassess his legacy and just remember, what a complete disaster he is, and how, instead of seeing him as being somehow, opposed to Trump, that, really Trumpism, was just a continuation of everything that, was started under Bush. Like, our whole country's turned towards authoritarianism post, 9/11. And really, although really it didn't even start, with 9/11, really just, that Trump is just a continuity of, like, how horrible the Republican Party has been for quite a long time, not just with Bush, but with, Reagan and with Nixon. I mean, that's something I wish liberals would, do a better job of, defining themselves in opposition to their enemies. Like, just, saying that, Republicans and conservatives are awful, and no, Trump is, actually just the same as Bush and Reagan. But they always, try to rehabilitate, Republicans.
Oh, shit. Sorry. This is Ish's trying to join.
Okay, great.
Oh, wait, sorry. God damn it, Ish. Oh, there he is. Okay. Hey, Ish, are you there?
Hello? Ish?
Yo,
What's up?
what up?
Chilling, man.
It took me a long time to get in here.
What happened?
I don't know. It was just like trying to accept me to join for like a good couple minutes. I mean, I just tried to join a couple minutes ago though, but it took me a while to get in here. I even sent you a message saying I tried to join.
Oh, well, I just got that like
a couple minutes ago.
Seconds ago.
Yeah.
No, like just now.
Technical difficulties.
Well, I mean, I didn't try and join.
Yeah, I guess it was 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, but I sent a message after sitting like at the screen where it says waiting to join meeting for about 5 or 6 minutes. So within the past 10 minutes, I tried to join. Not before.
Oh, that's strange. Yeah, as soon as you said that, then I saw it, and then I clicked it really quick. But I don't know. Maybe they should make the icon bigger, or maybe it was like, I don't know. That would be weird if it was hiding behind the screens. Like they don't have good positioning on here.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it could just be me. I'm not agreeable to most things these days, interfaces and people, and so it might have been just.
I always feel like that with technology. It's always strange, but they should make these things more friendly.
Yeah.
So, what's up, everybody?
Oh man, chilling. We've been on for a bit. I guess
for an hour.
Is that how long we've been on?
I think it's we're getting probably close to the hour mark. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we had a good discussion just about everything that's been happening.
Cool.
Yeah.
I co-sign everything.
Awesome. Great.
Cool.
I'm feeling like I've been enlightened and it was productive.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just saying how, middle class homeowners should give up all of their goods to, the working class people, so we can just share all of our resources.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So are we saying that the middle class are no longer the working class, no longer a part of the working class?
Well, I mean, there's differences. There's, I guess there's working middle and middle.
Middle.
I mean, in a way, I think, the middle class, now is, more working class. Like, there's this term I heard, you know, that actually describes, you know, a lot of people in DSA like precaritariat and like, you know, teacher, like a lot of people in DSA are like, you know, teachers, journalists, social workers, like jobs that used to be considered solidly, you know, middle class, but like because of like, you know, student debts and like, you know, declining, you know, you know, declining support for like, you know, public sector jobs, you know, public sector jobs that are not the police, obviously, you know, declining wages, you know, they've in a sense become, you know, more proletariatized. So in a sense, the middle class, you know, is now maybe more working class than they have been in a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know that Flav is being sarcastic.
No sarcasm.
Yeah.
Oh, you think they should just give up all their stuff?
Well, why are you saying they? We're talking about you.
I'm not middle class. I'm not middle class.
You own a home. I'm sorry to tell you, you're middle class.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, you're more than welcome to come try and take it.
I mean, you've got at least two. You've got at least 2 college degrees in your house. You own a home. You're in the suburbs. I say you're pretty middle class.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think that your standard for middle class is probably skewed.
Oh, that's spoken like a true bougie middle class.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm for it. I'm for it because then I can like take my gun and go take a house from somebody else.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, like, you know, go after the, you know, upper middle.
No,
class.
No. That's too difficult. I'd go after some old person who struggled their whole life to probably build their house. You know, had their grandparent or parent probably built their house from the ground up, and it's probably all they have, and they don't need it anyway because they're like on their way out the door. You know what I'm saying? So I'd kind of
yeah
help them along. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then just take
take
theirs.
it by force. You could probably just befriend them, and you know.
No. Force would be the way because you know, like befriending people it's too much investment, right? Like I don't really want to invest too much of myself in that process. It can be taxing. Then I might feel some type of way when you're gone, and you know, I don't want to feel anything for you at all. I want to just unremorsefully take what's yours, especially because I can.
Yeah.
Well, if you're that much of a sociopath, then
no, it's not sociopathic, right? We're talking like ultimately we're saying like survival of the fittest, and you know the strong take what they want, or cede what they want, cede what they have to those who can take it from them, right?
No,
so, I mean,
ours wasn't about strength. Ours wasn't about strength. Ours was just more about redistribution of wealth.
But I mean, I guess
that's subjective, right? To you know what people describe or deem as strength, right? Like you clearly think wealth is strength, thus you want it redistributed.
That's not why I want wealth. It has nothing to do with strength.
Well, clearly you think if wealth represents strength.
You know, what's clear about that?
Then why have it redistributed?
Wait, so what you're saying is the only reason one would want wealth is because it's strength?
No, I'm asking you to clarify. Why have it redistributed?
I'm just saying it was an odd leap to say that that's what I thought.
No, it's not. It's not odd. It's a logical leap. Whether it's correct or not, it certainly is. It can't be left off the table. You specifically said wealth redistributed.
Yeah.
So
no, I just don't know.
So my question to you is how do you view wealth?
Oh, I view it as a lot of things. It's comfort. It's
so not strength, comfort.
Well, those you know.
Well, no, I said a lot of things, Ish. Now,
I mean, And I think strength and comfort, are very, are very, interrelated. Like, I mean, when you have, the more wealth you have, the more, strength, at least, economic strength you have. And, with that, you're able to buy comfort.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah. So those, it's like they're kind of, inseparable, concepts. And, in a way, because there's so many people in society that have, accrued wealth unjustly. I mean, because we don't have, a level playing field in society. It's absolutely, just to redistribute, wealth so that, there's greater equality, so that everyone, has, a better chance, in life to, just, pursue their dreams regardless of where they come from.
I'm with it 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm with it. I'm waiting. I need somebody to come take my house because I listen, and I can use it as an excuse to satisfy sociopathic, sociopathic qualities within my character that I can, kind of get away with. Because man, I'm going right to like the oldest people. Like, y'all don't need to be here anymore. Why are y'all hoarding resources from people that are going to live at least 10 to 20 more years?
Well, I had to,
What if they have kids,
yeah.
though?
Well, I had to laugh. I had to laugh too, though. When Ish, when you made the comment about how you'd be helping them along, because that's like one of those. That's one of those like ghoulish things that I can see, actuaries or like real estate people writing articles about in Business Insider about how like the coronavirus is going to help, be good for the housing market because you'll have more houses opening up with like old people dying or something.
I'm sure someone's capitalized.
Yeah.
on that already.
Listen, Mike, I don't think 80-year-olds have kids. I think they have adults, and they'll be good. They'll be good. They'll be okay. They shouldn't be in the home any longer.
What about grandkids then?
I mean,
great grandkids.
Listen. We're talking about redistribution of wealth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so redistribute them little brats somewhere.
No, I got you. I'm with you.
Like, redistribute them. Like, we can.
Let's do
listen.
it.
We could. Someone might want some little 7-year-old grandkid's leg.
Hey,
Somebody else might want an arm.
Yeah, I like the idea that
if they're black kids, right, we could send them to organizations like the KKK, like just parts of them. You know what I mean? Like we could just,
it's gone off the rails.
Couple legs.
It's gone off the
rails. We can go get little KKK kids and send them to like Black Lives Matter movement.
That actually reminds me of an idea I once had for a screenplay. Like it would be a screenplay where like this kid ends up, as a baby, ends up on the doorstep of like a gay Jewish black couple and is raised by them. And then when he grows up, he finds out that his birth parents were actually like in the KKK.
Huh. How does that affect him? Does he like want to go embrace the ideology of his birth parents, or?
I hadn't really gotten that far, but I think it would be, it would be sort of, an interesting dilemma on nature versus nurture, because this is a guy who, like, or maybe his birth parents find out, and then you see he was a guy who was raised by like a loving, like two, a loving gay couple, like a Jewish guy and a black guy, and he was bar mitzvahed, and so like at that point, his birth parents would probably want to kill him too.
That's interesting.
So would this be like a
you should explore that.
Would this be a dark comedy?
Yeah, that's what I was sort of thinking. Yeah, like a dark, a dark comedy. Like, and I think in one version of it, I had the idea that he was like kidnapped actually by like, as a baby from like the, KKK parents by like, anti-racism activists, and then just left at, these guys' doorsteps. Like, I guess as like I don't know what their motivation was actually, and I hadn't really thought clearly about how it would all go down, but yeah, I always sort of imagined it as like a dark comedy.
Maybe it's like they somehow they get in an interaction with this kid, and they see that he hasn't been corrupted just yet, and they feel for him, and they kind of love this kid. I don't know, maybe they're some kind of caretakers or some kind of like preschool teachers or whatever, and like but they're kind of involved with some radical people who will do anything to like save lives or whatever, and then they hatch this plan to like save this kid before he gets corrupted.
Yeah, before his mind is polluted. That I could see. That would be that would be interested in, maybe and maybe you have that as sort of like some backstory, because and at that point too
I don't mean to cut y'all off. I just wanted to say this really quick. I can't wait to get back to the redistribution of wealth subject, because I'm all about gun butting like 8-year-old kids in the face with my shotgun for their allowance. Okay, go on.
Yeah, no, we can get onto that too. I mean,
I want all that.
Yeah, I'm always down for some redistribution of wealth, but going beyond redistribution of wealth apparently into
I'm like, yo, that ponytail had to cost you like $60. Come up out them pockets. Like I'm just saying.
Yeah, totally.
But I think we got a good story going here. And I think where we could go with the story is like, let's say these people, whether they're in the KKK or whatever.
Yeah, I do like this story.
Yeah, they're trying so this kid kind of
Wait a minute, did Joey give you license to write his story?
Well, I'm open with it. I threw it out there, so I'm down for.
What are you, the story police? Am I being detained?
Well, like I'm like an awesome storyteller, so I'm all for this. I just wanted to be sure that Joey was like.
Yeah, well, we're talking.
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm cool with it, because I myself, it was always a vague idea, and I had never really, sort of figured out where I was going to go with this or how it was going to, conclude. So I'm open to, hearing as many ideas as possible. So what were you saying, Flav?
So the idea is, at some point, the KKK parents try to sue, the folks who kidnapped the kid, and so it becomes this circus where a lot of people are like, "What are you talking about? You guys are obviously horrible parents. You're racist. You're KKK members." But they try to appeal to the courts by saying our ideology does not preclude us from being
good parents.
From being good parents, exactly. From being loving parents. And so then it becomes this whole media circus.
Which is a good moral arguing ground, right?
Yeah.
It's a good defense.
It is.
Yeah.
And there was a case like that in New Jersey, a few years ago. I remember where this guy, who was a neo-Nazi, was like, being investigated by social workers, because he, and like, they like, and like at one point he did lose custody of his kids, but it turned out that he was actually like, on their very narrow grounds, like they could not find, a reason on the narrow grounds of like, like a parent, not providing for like food and shelter and, actually taking care of their kids. On those narrow grounds, they could not, really like justify taking his kids away. But
because it becomes a question of discrimination.
Yeah.
Right. Like we can't discriminate against someone for their creed.
Yeah. Unless where it gets tricky, though, is the KKK is considered a terrorist organization.
I don't know that that's the case. I think that that's the narrative that people like liberals have. I don't know if that's like legally the case.
I thought that they were considered the first terrorist organization.
Well, that's arguable. And again, we can research this, but the reason why I say it's arguable is because the KKK isn't one organization. There are several different organizations that fall under the KKK banner, and many of them do things like contribute money to their city, organize events, and they do this strategically so that they're not looked at as the hate group that they are. I only know this because I watched a documentary recently on the KKK, and there's so many different branches. Like it's not just one great group called the KKK.
What was the documentary called?
You know what? I watched it like a year and a half ago. I'll find it for you. I'll give you the name.
Yeah.
But it's an entire documentary on the KKK, and it just talks about how they interview a bunch of different people from different sects because they don't even all agree ideologically. I mean, they have a general consensus on race relations and what have you, but different groups operate differently. Like there are groups that actually contribute money to their community. They organize events. You understand what I'm saying? Like these are people who actually contribute on some level productively in their communities as the KKK.
And they probably and they probably just I mean they probably don't advertise it up front. Like they probably make an effort to make themselves look respectable at community events, like wear a suit and tie and like keep the robes in the closet, like in a sense. So most people don't even probably know they're KKK.
And also, I just want to say, Mike, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that I don't know, but it's just my understanding that them being labeled as terrorists is just it's a popular label rather than an actual legal label. I know I literally watched today on YouTube, somebody shared it on my Facebook. I'll send you guys the link, where people were demonstrating, obviously, for George Floyd. They were protesting and demonstrating, and there was a single man out there. He wasn't in KKK sheets, but he was in his KKK, like his militant uniform with all of his KKK markings on, and he had a gun on him. And they got into an argument with him. He ended up arguing with the Marine. They called the police on him. They called the police. Nobody got arrested. He was KKK. He didn't get arrested. Nobody got arrested. The police just came to defuse the situation. He was by himself. And like a bunch of white protesters were pissed at him. And they were in his face and he was in their face. And, they were arguing back and forth. And he was like, Ahmaud Arbery should have got killed. And that's one more, we got rid of all the KKK jargon. All of it. And, they didn't arrest, the cops came, they didn't arrest him or anything.
Right.
And he had a gun.
Jesus, I mean, because I was gonna say, like, I forgot the detail that he had a gun, because I was gonna say, he really should have just, gotten his ass kicked, but obviously the fact that he had a gun is,
he was confronted by a Marine because he was like in a woman's face, nose to nose, arguing, and the Marine saw him and pulled over, a wounded vet saw him and pulled over, and they got to arguing, and the Marine was like, touch me, please. And like the guy, even with the gun, you could clearly tell he wanted nothing to do with this Marine. Like he didn't want it. You know what I mean? Like his whole demeanor changed. Like he ain't want it. Marine was like, man, please touch me. Just touch me. You know what I mean? So he could have an excuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Just, to start shit.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no. The guy was out there by himself, protesting against the protesters, saying all kind of things, like insightful things. He didn't use hate speech, but he did say, like, he didn't use the words that are legally deemed hate speech, but he did use hate speech in the sense that he said things like Ahmaud Arbery should have been killed.
Right.
He was like, monkeys are smarter than black people. There's a gorilla named Coco who scored an 80 on an IQ test. That's greater than many black, like all kind of stuff. He was going in.
Like basically just, being a complete troll and just being a troll and just, saying, I'm going to be as offensive as possible. And, oh, I have a gun. So, you can't get me. I mean, that is the sign of a real coward to me.
Well, he was a coward in the sense that he was not going to shoot anybody.
Yeah.
And you could tell nothing about his demeanor. Like they were in his face. And to be honest, they pressed him. But he was trolling just by being there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And just, I mean, the fact that he feels the need to just bring a gun to just be a racist, just shows how cowardly he is, and just what a completely worthless, just small person, like just basically a small man with a big mouth and a small dick also probably.
Yeah, it was. I'll send you guys the link. I don't know if you've seen it, Joe, but it was. Yeah, it was. He was. He had his cap on, not a KKK cap. It was a blue shirt, like a blue, like Boy Scout-esque military type uniform, dark
Wow.
blue with like his KKK insignias on, and that's how they knew he was KKK because he
Yeah.
had it all over. He had it on his shirt. He talked to the police for a while, but they didn't make any arrests. They didn't arrest him or arrest, the people that were, he was going back and forth with.
Yeah, I can just picture one of the cops saying, "Oh yeah, I know you. I saw you at the latest cross burning." Yeah,
Like Jed,
Yeah.
what are you doing, man?
yeah, exactly.
You out here by yourself, man? Did you
Yeah.
did you notify Warren that you were gonna be, that you were gonna be out here?
Yeah, exactly. Warren and Jethro.
I don't know if Warren's gonna be too happy about this.
Yeah. Yes, we might need to introduce, we might need to intercede and like implement whatever our, grand legal disciplinary procedures are.
And also, I just want to say to Flav's point, I am very sure that iterations of the KKK, especially coming out of the 1800s, early 1900s, were certainly deemed terrorists.
Right.
I can't imagine they weren't. You're burning crosses, you're lynching people. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I can't imagine they weren't. But I also know, and strategically so, that organizations within the KKK have went to great lengths, and I'm not making an excuse for them, not to be put in a position to be labeled as such.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like to clean up their image, so to speak.
And in a sense, that makes them more scary because they're able to just sort of blend in to respectable society more without being noticed.
Listen, Joe, when you say that, I recently, and I argued this point, and a lot of people did not agree with me. I don't care. I never had a problem with the Confederate flag until the media told me I had a problem with the Confederate flag. And when I say this, what I mean is, like, I grew up, I watched the Dukes of Hazzard, so I was cool with it. As a matter of fact, when you had that Confederate flag in your truck window, at the very least, I knew who you are and what your intentions are, what you believe. But juxtapose it next to them white sheets that have caused trauma for minorities throughout the history of this country. Like, they literally represent fear and trauma. Like, I'd rather you put that energy to having those banned than having the Confederate flag banned. I'm not mad that you got the Confederate flag removed. You understand what I'm saying? But I wasn't mad. I wasn't mad before the narrative popped up that we need to get rid of the Confederate flag. I wasn't mad about the flag. At the very least, if you had the flag in your window, I kind of knew what you thought. Now you can really hide from me. You understand what I'm saying? But yet,
exactly.
To me, I felt like that energy, and I would say this to people, and they were like, "Ish, but it represents," and I'm like, "Yeah, but nobody was mad about that flag. As a matter of fact, we used to take that exact flag and put it on Malcolm X hats. Like, nobody was really tripping over that flag until this narrative came out that we should be tripping over it. But the white sheets is still acceptable."
Yeah, that's exactly. That's an interesting point.
I mean, how were the white sheets acceptable?
Because we're not banning the use of wearing white sheets, even though we know that white sheets have directly impacted our culture and minorities across this country throughout its history, like in a traumatic way. Unlike the Confederate flag, like those white sheets signify.
Who has banned the Confederate flag?
Well,
and not banned white sheets.
You know what I'm talking about, Mike. Just 3 years ago, there was a dramatic push, anti-Confederate flag push. You know what I'm talking about, Joey.
Yeah,
but it's not like there was a let the white sheets keep going push. Like,
yeah, but there wasn't a remove the white sheets push either.
No, I mean, people get pissed when the KKK comes to town. Like, the difference is like people are not prominently displaying their white sheets.
Yeah, but what you missed my point. Nobody was mad about the Confederate flag being prominently displayed until a narrative came out, which was media driven. Like, nobody was mad.
When did this narrative come out?
2 to 3 years ago, when it was all over media about we need to get rid of the Confederate. It was like one of the biggest social media conversations.
I've known people that have been not very happy about the.
Oh, I knew people that used to. I knew people that actually owned hats with the Confederate flags on them in the shape of Malcolm X's X.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that may be the case, but people have been against that flag for a long time.
Okay. They were just quiet about it. It wasn't a big major national outcry.
Well, what happened 2 to 3 years ago?
Nothing. One day.
What happened 4 years ago? What happened in
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. A lot of things have happened, man. I don't know. Trump got elected.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it started. Even before.
I was
Trump
gonna say that.
Yeah,
it was before Trump got elected.
Well, my memory of it. My memory of it actually is that the first push came shortly after the Dylan Roof shooting, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
But it might have been going on earlier.
I was about to say, I think it might be even a little bit before that.
Yeah,
When was the black woman arrested for climbing that pole and taking down the
see, that I don't remember.
The flag. They turned her into like a comic book like little character.
I would imagine it was during that whole process, right?
A comic book? Was there a comic, like an actual like comic book that was done about that?
I don't know.
There was at least like a depiction of her as like a comic style hero.
Oh wow!
I mean, this would have been definitely before 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's how long ago that whole Confederate flag issue was, because it was certainly, I think it was before Dylan Roof as well.
It could be. Yeah. I mean, I really think, maybe it's that, it just started to gain more mainstream attention around that time. But I think, it's probably, sort of been an ongoing issue, for a long time. I mean, like going back, there were like debates, and there were like, in various southern states, like over, removing like the, Confederate, the stars and bars from like the state flags and stuff. So I think it's, been going on, quite a while. And maybe activists were pushing before that, but like, around that time is just when it started to get more, mainstream media attention.
Yeah, that may be true. And again, Flav, I'm not saying that people didn't have a problem with it. I mean, I'm a black guy or considered a minority, so I do kind of have an ear to the street on things like that. And I know, but I also know that we weren't running around like, get rid of this flag. The flag is so horrible to us. Like we weren't. There were people who did. There were certainly people, but it wasn't like the majority. Nobody really cared. People were cool with the Dukes of Hazzards. Like they weren't saying, "Oh, the Dukes of Hazzards, look at that flag. I'm not watching the show." Everybody watched it.
Well, that was an old ass show.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but nonetheless, the reason why I mention it is because when there was this push to get, I mean, they took it off to General Lee as a result.
Well,
so
yeah, I mean,
well, hold on, and people were saying that they never had it because they didn't. That's why I'm mentioning this, because nobody really had a problem with it, old or not. Like they were making movies.
Yeah, I mean, people think about things and things get into the general consciousness. I mean, at some point, people are like, like why are we associating national monuments and national buildings with like this symbol of division? You know,
So I don't disagree. I just think it's trivial. There
well,
are bigger and better battles to fight.
yeah, but people always say that. I mean, listen, symbolism is like you're a comic book guy, right? That stuff is all about symbolism.
Mike, sometimes it's not just so benevolent, though. Sometimes it really is just a narrative that we followed. Sometimes it's just that. Somebody got it in their head to say, hey, I want to put out this narrative, and I can because I have this platform.
You know, I mean, that's you're entitled to that opinion, but you know, maybe people who live down south who were tired of getting their churches firebombed felt a different way, and maybe they'll like.
And they weren't. They didn't say, okay, let's push to remove the white sheets. Make sure we never see them again.
That doesn't make sense to me. No one is allowing these white sheets to be displayed.
Absolutely, you can march and demonstrate in white sheets. For sure, it's called freedom of speech. They do it all the time. They came to UB. Dwayne and Kelsey wanted to go protest, and I told them not to.
Okay, so people wanted to protest it. So you're saying the same. You're saying the same thing.
They didn't want to protest them wearing the sheets. They wanted to protest the KKK. Period.
UB was at University of Buffalo. The KKK went there. That's wow.
Yeah, because the KKK demonstrates all the time. They legally can do so, and they wear their full garbs.
Yeah, and people want to protest it all the time.
And you can protest them. Absolutely, you can protest them. But what they're not protesting is the sheets.
And so, just to interject for a second, I noticed that the clock is counting down. Like we have like under 2 minutes left. So what do we want to do? Do we want to get another meeting room or wrap this up?
Yeah, well, let's get another room if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, me too.
All right, great.
1 sec.
All right.
Where did it tell you what the time was?
I just noticed there's you're not seeing that because I just noticed that on the top of this screen it's counting down. It's remaining meeting time 1:16, 1:14. It's like it's counting down 2 seconds at a time.
Oh, I see. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay.